Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to Pretty Girl University. Class is starting. Today, I'm going to be asking you the question, which beauty pedestal do you want? A lot of people think that there is only one standard of beauty, and that's false. Beauty is subjective, and it always will be. There is no one set of features that everyone finds beautiful. Another thing that people don't realize is that beauty trends are always changing. But the question is, how can you get the beauty trend to match up with you and to match up in your favor so that your features, your phenotype is the preferred one? Or how do you get that beauty pedestal and that pretty privilege for yourself? And this is without changing yourself, without getting any surgeries, just naturally. How do you get that? Well, I'm going to start off by telling a story of my first encounter with pretty privilege and the different types of pretty privilege. So you guys know that when I was about 14, that's when I started modeling. And around that time, I also had started going to a new junior high. So I went from the black private elementary school to this all-white junior high and high school. So even though I met the beauty standard to get a modeling contract and to be a part of this modeling agency, when I got to high school, I don't consider myself to be someone who was considered the prettiest girl in the school or anything like that. But I also noticed an interesting phenomenon at my school. I noticed that there were about maybe 5 to 10 girls, and they were in all of the sports teams. They were the varsity soccer girls, they all did varsity basketball, they all were on the varsity volleyball team. Like literally every sports team at that high school, it had the same girls on it. And I noticed that every single girl who was on all of those different sports teams, because they were on the varsity and because they were more visible, they were granted pretty privilege. So they got the pretty pedestal. People were calling them pretty, even though I'm not trying to be rude, but if they were to leave that high school, they would not have probably received pretty privilege because a lot of those girls did not meet the popular kind of Hollywood beauty standard as far as body type, as far as features. So for example, I remember there was this one girl, she was Asian and white, and she had all of the monoracial Asian features that a lot of people try to change in Asian communities. So you know how there's like this big thing about featureism in the Asian community, how people try to go against having monolid eyes and stuff like that, and having like a very Asian looking face. So this girl, she was on the soccer team. She was a woman of color, and she did not fit the popular kind of Hollywood beauty standard of the early 2000s. I noticed there was another girl on the same soccer team who was a little bit shorter. She had more of a boxy shape. She was not skinny. I would not call her skinny. She was not obese, but she wasn't skinny. She didn't have a flat stomach. So, but that girl, she still also was called the prettiest girl in school. And so I started to recognize the fact that number one, beauty is subjective, and number two, visibility contributes to the pretty privilege you will receive. Beauty is visibility, visibility is beauty. Beauty is social power. Social power is beauty. The more visibility and social power you have, the more status you have in whatever you're in. Like I'm just using my high school as an example. The more status you have in that social circle you're in, the more perceived beauty you will have. So I remember these girls that were all on the soccer team and stuff, they were getting asked to prom, guys were like crushing on them and stuff. And I recognized, wait a minute, these people at this high school, they're not following popular beauty standards. They're not following who's the model or like who looks like so-and-so on TV. They're not following that because they are living in reality. They're living in their world. And so in this world that we are in right now, which is this junior high / high school that I'm in, these soccer team girls dominate. And the reason they socially dominate is because they're dominating all of the sports. Like it's the same girls on every single team. They're doing basketball, volleyball, they're doing all of the varsity sports. And so the fact that these girls are getting photographed and their pictures are on the school website, they're having their names hung up in the hallway and they're getting trophies and stuff and people are congratulating them. They are getting their names listed in the local town newspaper for all of their sports stats. Some of these girls are even getting opportunities to go to college, or they're getting opportunities to like play on these other soccer teams for like special players who are like really, really good. All of those things were forms of social status. And I noticed that the men in the high school, these males, the junior high males and the high school males, they respected the social status that those girls had. And so, because those girls were the most visible and they had the most social status as far as being on all the varsity sports teams, that caused them to receive pretty privilege. So those guys, they completely ignored Hollywood beauty standards. They didn't care about whether those girls were all done up and had all their makeup on. Half of the girls didn't even wear makeup because they were athletes. They didn't care about any of that. They cared about the fact that those were the quote unquote popular girls. The popular girls are the pretty girls, and the pretty girls are the popular girls. If you can get one of those things, you will get the other. If you can get popularity, you're automatically going to contribute to changing the beauty standard to yourself. I remember when there was a time when being lighter skinned with broader features was not really the preferred look. But once Rihanna came out, and she has very broad features, she has a very broad nose. You know, women like Sweetie, she also has a very broad nose, very full lips. Same thing with Ice Spice, broad nose, full lips. So once those types of women gained popularity, it actually caused them to automatically have the pretty privilege. Because again, beauty is social power. Social power affects the beauty standard. Visibility increases your beauty. You could think you're the most beautiful person in the world, but what's the good in being the most beautiful person in the world if no one knows you exist? What's the point of being the most beautiful woman in the world if no one sees your beauty and agrees with your beauty and enjoys your beauty? You're not visible. So again, visibility equals beauty. Beauty equals visibility. Beauty is social power. Those who attain social power are more likely to be perceived as beautiful. And it does not matter if they look like everyone else. It doesn't matter if they fit whatever the popular standards are. Depending on what society they're in, when I use the term society, I'm going to use my high school and junior high as an example because that was, my social setting at the time. That was my world. So in that world, because they were the dominant, they were the top dogs. They were the Beyonce of the high school. They were the Taylor Swifts of the high school. And so because they used their talent to social climb by being on all of those varsity sports teams, it actually affected people's perception of their beauty. And this is just a small sample of what our society is like in general. Why is it that a lot of people complain about lighter skinned Black women being in these music videos or in these movies and stuff? Because those people understand that visibility is beauty and beauty is visibility. They understand that beauty is social power, and they know that the ones with the social power are more likely to be perceived as beautiful because of their status and because of the way they can move in society. And so this is why I emphasize every single one of us creating our own YouTube channels, because guess what? If it's your YouTube channel, you are the queen bee of that YouTube channel. You get to dominate that space. You get to promote whatever agenda you want. You can promote whatever beauty standard you want. And so it's the women who are able to climb to these positions of power who are able to influence the beauty standards within their own domain. So I just used an example of my junior high and high school. For some of you, it could be your hometown. For others, it's your church. For some of you, it's the office you're in. And then for us, it's YouTube or social media or the internet. Think about all of the beauty trends that became popular through Instagram. It became popular because regular, everyday people like you and me decided, hey, I'm going to post an Instagram picture of myself with space buns, and I'm going to make it look so cute and so bomb to the point where a whole bunch of other girls are going to start doing it, and we are going to make space buns more visible. And as we make space buns more visible, it's going to increase the pretty privilege that is associated with wearing space buns. Same thing happened with the natural hair movement. A lot of women said, you know what, I'm no longer going to straighten my hair or make it look as straight as possible. I'm going to wear my hair curly. And then from there, many other girls started doing the same thing, and it caused curly hair to become more visible. This is actually why some people got mad about the natural hair movement, because the girls with the curly hair were hopping on to this social climbing bandwagon of making their curly hair types the most visible. And so it took off to the point where it became higher up on the social hierarchy, for lack of better words, or at least in the world of hair. Curly hair, kind of the girls who had that hair texture, they were able to social climb within the hair society or within the hair sector. And so, because of that, they were able to increase their perceived beauty with those hair textures, which led to the brand deals. It led to them getting opportunities. It led to them gaining subscribers and stuff. So, this is also why I say that depending on what part of society you care about, it could be the hair movement, it could be your high school or your junior high. If you're a teenager watching this, it can be your college. Depending on what part of society you care about, it's going to be important for you and people who look like you to social climb as high as possible and to gain positions of influence so that you guys can kind of infiltrate the beauty standard and kind of create a new face for whatever it is you're trying to represent. So going back to my example from high school, those girls who were considered the prettiest girls in school and stuff, the reason they were considered that was because they were seen as the face of that junior high. They were the face of that high school because the actual administrators recognized their talent, they recognized their athletic abilities, and they decided to photograph them. So they got them all dressed up. They basically treated these girls like celebrities. That's pretty privilege. It's getting that celebrity treatment. Of course, there are bad things that come with it too. But other people were witnessing these girls getting photographed. They were witnessing these girls being congratulated by teachers who, in the school setting, the teachers have social power, right? So the teachers have the power to give these students these accolades. They have the power to put these students' pictures in the yearbook and stuff like that. And so something else that happens is when you social climb and you make yourself more visible, you're more likely to be validated. So yes, you're going to be invalidated. People are going to hate on you, but you also increase the chances of being validated because there are going to be some people out there who are fans of your athletic ability or they like the space buns that you're wearing. So even though you may not be in style yet, or even though you may not have popularized that particular type of beauty yet, the higher up you social climb and the more influence you gain, the more likely you are to contribute to changing those beauty standards. Because look at the beauty standards of the early 2000s, kind of like that Paris Hilton body type, and then look at how women like Beyonce came around and they totally defied it. They were like, hey, instead of changing my body to being super skinny, I want this to be the beauty standard because it's closer to what I want to look like. You know, she got to decide for herself if she wanted to keep her hips or if she wanted to basically have an eating disorder and become anorexic. So for her, she decided, you know what, I'm going to keep my curves and I'm just going to popularize this and this is going to be my signature look. And then as she did that and she social climbed using her talents, her ability to sing and dance and, you know, make herself look glamorous, as she was able to social climb, other people started following suit. And then next thing you know, that was the new trend in Hollywood. This is how beauty trends change. This is how beauty standards change. And this is also why I say beauty is subjective. I've noticed that the girls on YouTube from the Black women empowerment space, the girls that have a scarcity mindset, they believe that there is only one standard of beauty. And they believe that if you don't meet that standard, which is basically whiteness, then you are automatically underprivileged. You're never going to have pretty privilege, or somebody white is always going to have more privilege than you. But I understand nuance. Here on this channel, we talk a lot about nuance. There are many different parts of society. So yes, there are parts of our world where, you know, maybe there are more white people. But for some of you, maybe you live in a city where there aren't as many white people. Maybe you don't even live in the United States. I've got thousands of people on this channel who don't even live in the United States. And I know that a lot of people like to focus on Hollywood, but not everybody wants to go to Hollywood. And even Hollywood itself is not a monolith. They have Mexican, they have like the Latin American side of Hollywood, they have Black Hollywood, they have like K-dramas and all types of different movies and stuff. And so I really don't like how some people, they're so hyper focused on whiteness and they think that Hollywood, or they feel like their personal world revolves around whiteness, and so they make themselves into a victim. But it's like, no, there are plenty of people who are social climbing right now. Think about K-pop. Think about how K-pop 10 years ago was nowhere near as mainstream as it is now. So just because you are not white, it doesn't mean that you can't have influence. It doesn't mean that you can't change the world. It doesn't mean that you can't be perceived as being beautiful. So when you are deciding which beauty pedestal you want, you have to first decide, okay, what part of society do I want to navigate in? So when I was a teenager, for me, it was my junior high and my high school. That's where I wanted to be perceived as the pretty girl. I didn't focus on everything on such a macro level. I was focusing on my current world right in front of me. And so instead of me getting mad at the girls on the soccer team and the basketball and volleyball team, the same 5 girls that were on every sports team and like being worshiped, having the ground worship that they walked on, having everybody fawning over their beauty, even though they were a sweaty and musty hot mess, in my opinion, instead of me getting mad or jealous over that, I decided to learn from that. And so I went down the same route. So I don't consider myself to be talented athletically. So that's not the route that I went down when I was in high school. I went for different activities. So, well, I did do cheerleading. So I guess that, I mean, that counts. Cheerleading is definitely a sport. So I did cheerleading. I also did the choirs when I was in school. I did like drama and stuff. And I used those avenues of visibility and I used my talents in those areas to make myself more visible. And what do you think happened? Do you think the people were like, oh no, because she's black, we're not going to think she's pretty. That's impossible. We're not going to give her her flowers. We're not going to acknowledge her. Nope. I was able to social climb just like those other girls. So I went from having an inferiority complex, basically, or assuming that I would be at the quote unquote bottom because of the victim narratives others had taught me, to taking back my own power and then learning how to utilize the talents I had to gain visibility for myself. So I had the same face when I was in senior year of high school, same face as junior year, same body, same hair, everything was exactly the same. But I went from invisible basically to suddenly, oh my gosh, I want to look like you. Oh my gosh, I want to do my makeup like you. And basically being placed on this pedestal because, like I said, beauty is a form of social power, but also social power can be used to mold and shape and manipulate beauty standards. Look at what the Kardashians did. They used their social power that they attained through their money to manipulate the beauty standard to fit themselves or to fit whatever plastic surgeries they wanted to get at the time. So they were able to gain influence to the point where they basically made themselves just as visible, if not more visible, than the current celebrities of their time. And that is how they were able to sway the beauty standard towards themselves. Or the way I like to think of it is they created their own lane. They created their own beauty pedestal, because I've noticed some people have this mindset that if one person is pretty, then it means the other person is ugly, or like any beauty you have is taking away from someone else's. But no, we live in an abundant world. There are billions of people in this world, and beauty is subjective. So like I said, there's no such thing as like one look being considered prettier than everything else. Humans can't even agree on politics. We can't even agree on what the best color is, blue versus pink versus purple. So what makes you think humans are going to be able to agree on what human face is the most beautiful? It's disingenuous. And I feel like people try to put you in this victim mentality because they don't want you to social climb past them. But here on this channel, I'm giving you all the tea. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.